Please hold whilst we connect you to Redacted.
This is Fraser.
And this is Fraser Greenfield.
And this is Tore Brustad. And you're listening to Redacted.
Today we are joined by Tore Brustad, one of the founders of Permafrost, an award-winning, internationally renowned design consultancy headquartered in Oslo, Norway. Founded on the first day of the 21st century, Permafrost has won 5 Red Dot Best in Best awards, exhibited in New York City, Milan, and more, in addition to playing a key part in establishing what it means to do exceptional Scandinavian design in the 21st century. Tore,
Yep.
who are you in 100 words or less?
Apart from being a 48-year-old father of 3, I'm an industrial designer, and I've been an industrial designer for all my life since I was
A tiny kid.
No, I think this plays into one of your questions, but I sort of became aware of industrial design as a profession in my early teens. And up until then, and when I found it, I just immediately realized that this is it, because that was the combination of sort of art and science that I wanted, because I always loved drawing and painting and being an artist. And then I also was doing well in school. I can do maths and everything else. Having to give up on regular science and school stuff just to be an artist, that felt really good to me.
Okay. And so how did you discover the field initially?
Actually, my older sister applied to go to what was then the only place in Norway where we could study for industrial design, which was the National College of Art and Design.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was 5 years older, so she did that from before going to college. And then, that sort of opened my eyes as well. And I immediately knew that this is what I'm going to do.
So is your sister also practicing industrial design?
No, she's not. I think she went through the first gate and they have the first gate where you apply with some work, and then you get some of the top candidates will get to go there for a couple of days and sit down and have the test. And she didn't pass that second test, and then she found something else to do. I think that she fell more in love with. But then I think most people, or at least at that point, when there were only 12 seats a year in all of Norway for industrial design, then people would apply several years in a row and go to prep school, so foundation years of art just to get in. But I didn't. I just got straight in as a teenager, which was not good for me.
Not good?
It wasn't good for my confidence and my hubris. I just confirmed everything I already knew about me being the best designer in the world.
There's something to dig into that.
Yeah, but a teenager in art school have, confidence.
Everyone's going to be the next great art genius. So, can you tell us a bit about the origin story of Permafrost?
Yeah, as I said, we were just 12 students each year. So it's a tight-knit group, and after 4 or 5 years of studying together, we realized that we enjoyed being together and we enjoyed working together. We've done some collaborations and projects that were really fun, and then felt that we could do better work together as just more than the sum of the parts, so to speak. So we had flouted the idea of setting up a studio, and then one of my colleagues and I, we were told that we were going to win an award that was called the Talent of the Year Award by the Norwegian Design Council or something. And that was just a few months before we finished our majors, and then we realized that this is it. We need to hurry up and set up the studio and find a name and make business cards and prepare ourselves, because we're going to the award show and receiving the award and probably be center of attention, and everyone will want to talk to us, and we need to make sure we can accept all the...
I'll have designs that need designing.
Yeah. So we did that, and we set up a studio, or we created sort of the limited company and made a business out of it. And people were written up as founders, and we had to do everything, and we had a business card and a logo and a name. When we went to the award show, and then it was complete silence. No one talked to us, except maybe out of pity. But, you can imagine they get...
People are talking to people who win out of pity.
Yeah, well, everyone else was also a winner there. They won their own awards, and they were happy with that. And you mingle around. This was around the time where people had invented those plates with a little sort of a fjord in it, where you could hang your wine glass and mingle around. It's that kind of situation where you get some finger food and wine, and no business was discussed at all at that point. So we went back to finish our majors and wait for the next chance.
So I was just going to ask, maybe this has gone over my head, but where did the name Permafrost come from?
We wanted something that says something about being Norwegian, or at least Northern European. And we wanted something that was ideally something that would be the same in every language, like a word that's not translated. We didn't want an English name. We didn't want a Norwegian name. We wanted something that's universal. And I think we were inspired by a Finnish company called Snow Crash. I don't know if you remember Snow Crash. They had a sort of a brief period of fame in the mid-90s or late 90s. And then actually, and this sounds silly, but it was a mishearing the way we found the name, because I had an idea for something called Superfrost. Oh, that's cool. And also there was this pop artist in Norway. She was called Frost, actually, and she was popular at that time. So the idea didn't come out of thin air. And then I was going to explain to one of my colleagues that, I have this idea. It's going to be, you can call it Superfrost. But we were in a bar, and it was a really noisy place, like total techno club. So he didn't hear me. He said, "What did you say?" I said, Superfrost. He said, Permafrost? I said, oh, that's much better. So yeah, that's how it came about.
Yeah, so Destiny just tweaked it ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the radio silence you received on that award show, did that experience inform how you view and take on design awards?
Well, yes and no. I think we didn't lose the appetite for going to shows and receiving awards and being on the stage and getting recognition. But it was a little bit of a reality check about how difficult it is to get work. So yeah, the award shows are just for fun now. It's not you don't get work there, but you can. Everyone loves to be on the stage and get an applause.
So there's no like long-term benefits like social proof or?
Well, I think some of those, there are so many awards. And I guess in other related fields like advertising and graphic design and branding, they have even more awards. And I think that's the less obvious the quality of the work is, the more they are relying on someone else to give that stamp of approval. So they have all these awards to tell their clients that, look, we did great work for you. Someone said it's a gold piece of work. And then those award shows or the awards themselves are businesses in their own right. That's an organization that exists purely to make awards, but they have a business as well. And their authority or the credibility comes from whoever applies for that award. And if a sufficient amount of big actors agree that this is a good award, then it is. And for us, it's the Red Dot Award is for us considered maybe the top award for industrial design. And then you get to be mentioned with companies like Apple and Ferrari and big players. Then they sort of lend credibility to the award itself. So then that makes it easier to say we do good work, and here's something to prove it, like someone else's opinion. For some reason, people think that matters more than our own or their own opinion. But yeah, so that stamp of approval means something, but it only means something when you believe in the credibility of the organization that gives it.
Yeah, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah. And if I have friends in other sort of related businesses, and like I said, advertising and graphic design, and they go to so many award shows, and their social media is full of these shows, and they get gold pencils or gold somethings all the time, or silver, or whatever it is. And you haven't even heard of the awards, but then they have red carpets and enormous bottles of champagne, and it looks really glamorous and luxurious, and they are competing between themselves who's going to be the most important award. And that's a perspective I don't think their clients, the clients of the advertisers, or
the consumers.
They know. So it's really, they won this award, but then there's always this disclaimer that they always have to, they won this and that award, and then that award has been in business since so and so, and they have so many applicants each year and blah, blah, blah. But if you don't know it, if you haven't heard of it, then it's just banging your own drum in a way. But you're paying for it because it's expensive to win. If you win something, they will charge you for it, for being a winner.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't even remember the question, but yeah, our take on award shows is personally, you love the recognition, like someone else has voted or vouched for your work. But then also, it's only worth something if you manage to use it in your own marketing, in your own social media, in your own sort of reaching out to clients. And then for that Red Dot specifically, I do know that some of our clients, when they are searching for industrial designers, they will look through the sort of Red Dot archives. They will see who has won, and that will be a stamp of approval for them as well. When they reach out to someone they haven't heard of before or haven't worked with, then that's a stamp of approval that helps us.
You would hope that like good work should speak for itself, but that's not always true.
I think being matured and to the level where you can separate good work from great work or great work from almost great work, not everyone can do that. And I couldn't do it if we were talking about classical music and you played the best pianist in the world and the 10th best. I couldn't tell the difference, but someone can. Someone will be able to tell the difference between number 1 and number 50. And that takes a bit of knowledge and experience, and I couldn't do it. So that most people or most clients or most regular, they wouldn't tell the difference between the top 5 and top 500 designers in the world. And I'm not saying that we're top 5, but I'm saying that someone else has vouched for you, and that helps them.
Yeah, it puts you in the right place for people who need a little bit of guidance to find you as well. Yeah, I think that makes total sense.
So walk us back a bit. Like, how did you go from being a gang of 4 uni students to running an entire consultancy? And what did that process look like?
It was totally organic. Like we found a place or a studio to sit, and then we came in and opened the one laptop we had to share, and then started sketching things and discussing what to do, and then waiting for things to happen. And it took a long time to build something that resembled a consultancy, but you grab onto every piece of work you can and talk to people and reach out to people and the parents of your classmates, whatever it is, whoever needs something, they will be your first targets, people close to you. And then whenever we had to do something, whenever we felt like we are challenged with something, like in our business or in our work, it was always a question of what would a professional do? And trying to mimic what professionals do. And after a few years, we realized that being a professional is just about acting professional. It's nothing else to it. It's just, if you always try to mimic or act like the professional or replicate what they do, then you're basically professional. Once you realize that, then you realize that there's nothing more to it. You just have to show up and do the work and trying to do your best. And then that's it. And then it took us 10 years before we really got into the kind of work we wanted to do. So,
how did you end up pivoting from any work that you could get to actually like the work that you were really particularly interested in? Did you have any strategies for that?
I think if not strategy, at least we have a theory that if we couldn't find the work or get the project that we wanted, we could at least do stuff that was visible and build up a portfolio with other stuff. And we used exhibitions as a tool or a vehicle to do that. We went to shows in London and Milan and Stockholm and New York and Tokyo and all over the world. And every time you go there, you prepare something. You spend time making up a concept for the exhibition, making products, making something. And those things were our portfolio for the first years. Before we got paid work to do similar stuff, then we filled our sort of portfolio and our website and everything with projects from our exhibitions, up until the point where they overlapped a little bit.
So were you doing like other work to pay the bills in the interim, or?
We did. I think the first project we did was someone knew someone in a publishing house and they needed a cover for a book of some kind. And we poured every resource we had into that, and then 4 people doing tons of work and getting paid like $150 for it or something. And that was good. Anything we could do, we would do it. I even had a day job or a second job, not a day job, more like a night job. But I had a second job for a few months, and I don't think we managed to survive sufficiently until took almost a year to get to the sort of point where we can actually pay ourselves some salary and not just the bills and the rent.
For 4 people, though, that's pretty quick.
In a year.
It was a small salary, but yeah.
What was that magic breakthrough moment like?
The first salary. Yeah, now I think when we realized that this month we actually we can actually, there's more money left after we pay the rent and everything else, then you feel that this is possible. Right? It feels real in a different way. And we went from being students to just continuing being students. It's like the same group of people doing more or less the same stuff. And then at that point, we felt that, oh, but there's a living in this. And then it still was hard work and low pay, and still is to compared to other businesses. And you work harder for each dollar as a designer or industrial designer than you would in many other businesses. But yeah, I think feeling that it's real and that you're on a path or something. I don't know how to describe it, but I think it was some kind of confirmation that we can do this. But yeah.
What was the strategy in those early days? How did your business practice and strategy change as you grew?
I have to be honest and say that we have never been very strategic. We have been at one point, we did make a list of companies in Norway that these are the clients we want. But that's it. Okay, so now we have the list and we didn't do anything about it. But then, I guess, looking back, then 15 years later, we have worked with everyone. Like every single one on that list are now our clients.
Amazing. You have the original list and you're just like crossing them up.
It happens. I will never say that this is the karma of the universe or anything, but I do think that if you have an idea of your goal, then whenever you get to a point where you need to make a decision, like going this way or that way, then if you know what your goal is, you have a sense of which direction will take you closer to that. And then you keep adjusting your course until you're in the right direction.
Like a compass.
Almost like a compass, yeah. But then it's a 10-year journey to get there. So you can't actually say that you're strategically pursuing them. But when they do show up and when they do call you, it feels a little bit like magic.
So that.
I'm sure you've already covered this, but what was the biggest challenge in those 10 years as you matured Permafrost?
I think every studio will go through this more or less in the same order. But then at first, it's just getting work, doing something, and you will make anything and not even getting paid for it. You'll just grab any work you get. And then secondly, you want, okay, but let's see if we can can we charge something for this? Can we get paid to do it? Like we made the first book cover for nothing. And then at some point we said, oh, but our time is actually worth something. We can charge people for this. And so then you get to the point where you do work that's paid, but it's not the work you want. And then so you're still trying to get to the good work or the work that's closer to you, sort of the things you think you want to do. And then it's such over that, yeah, you get to do it, but it's not paid very well. And then, so that's the sort of same circle going again, like getting to work with good work, but then also trying to get paid for that. And in the end, you want the projects that are also paid and actually relevant and then challenging and everything you want.
How did you find these clients?
Actually, we lost some clients that they bankrupted during the .com, and then even 2008, they even lost other clients from financial crisis. So I have been talking about similar stuff with students from time to time when we have people over. And once I think in the mid-90s or something, there was this game show on television. I think it made the rounds around the world. People copied it, but it was called originally Touch the Truck. When Touch the Truck was a game show where contestants would put their hand on a car, Land Rover or something, and then that's it. If you can do it, you're in the competition until whoever is the last person standing with their hand on the truck wins it.
Yeah, so like Mr. Beast style, like where everyone stays there for ages.
And I've been telling this story for a few years, and then I found photos of the original winners of the first Touch the Truck competition in England, and this is how we survived. We just kept our hand on that truck until everyone else gave up, and then it was just us left, and then we got all the clients. And I've been describing this game show to the kids, to the students, and trying to make them understand that to end up, there is no magic threshold where you suddenly turn from young and promising to experienced. You just need to hang on. And then at one point you will be experienced, and people will recognize you as an experienced designer when they need help from that. And it turns out that usually people are more inclined to ask experienced designers for help than the young and promising ones. So it helps just hanging on. And then as Lucy just said, then the last time we talked about this, we had some, I would call them kids, but they're students in their 20s from Chicago. They were on a trip in Scandinavia, and they came to our studio, and I told them the same thing. And then one of the guys like, oh yeah, Mr. Beast did that. And yeah. So they pulled everything out and look what we did in the 90s. Yeah, he does that too. But yeah, he did, but he probably had a Lamborghini or something and not a Land Rover, because everything has to be so expensive.
I'm sure that was probably correct. Yeah.
And maybe weaning off from Trek to Lamborghinis, what would you say the Permafrost design process is, and why do you do it this way?
I think on a macro level, every single creative process is more or less the same. At the end, you're left with refining one or two ideas, and then at one point maybe realization, and then trying to produce it. But it's the same. You start with research, and then there's ideation, and then refinement. So for us, I think what differs in our process is that we have been trying to be visual and do design work all the way from the beginning. So when you're finished with doing research, then you could potentially be standing there with lots of knowledge, but no idea how to start the actual visual design work. Mm-hmm. So we developed our own proprietary model. We call it the use model, which is about trying to visualize some of the research actually, and trying to have something like a design tool or a visual tool or guide to take you into this ideation and then into the creative work. So that's, I think, one part of our process that is unique to us, or maybe it's not, maybe everyone does it, but for us it's, and the use model is an abbreviation of just user and sender and entity, which means that we are looking at the three perspectives of the project and trying to have strategic and meaningful discussions about not just what people want and what the client wants and what they want to put on the market, but actually trying to understand more about the context and more about what story is there to tell about this. Why will it exist in this world, and who's going to buy it, and why would they?
Do you have an example, a product example that you could walk us through?
Yeah, I'll try to walk you through it. But so the U is just as I said, it's just an abbreviation. But user is about finding from the perspective or the context of the user. And you and I and everyone else, we're a million different users. Depending on what you're buying or what you're doing, you're a different user when you're buying stuff for your kids than when you're buying stuff for yourself, or for when you're buying tools for your shed. It's different from buying decorations for your living room, right? So you have different motivations all the time. And it's about understanding that context and trying to understand what is the one quality that people are looking for when they're researching this kind of thing. If you're buying a children's chair, what's their concerns? And then, that would be sometimes people are just care about safety, or they care about the look of it because it's going to be in their living room. Mm-hmm. And then you have the entity, which would be the product. Sometimes the entity, it could be a physical product or a digital product, or it could be an entire interior or a room or a space, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. There's usually an idea when you start a project about what kind of innovation or quality that you want to improve or offer that hasn't already been made, or else why would you? So trying to single out the one value or quality that the product is going to add to the world, and trying to find a word for that and saying, this is the quality that we're focusing on, whether it's more lightweight or faster or stronger or better in any kind of way, in trying to understand that this is why the motivation for this project. And then you're left with a trio of values that together they will form a short story. This is made by this company, which have these values for this user because that's what they're looking for, and we have made this invention. And then the next step would be trying to translate those values into images and into design and into
like a physical form.
Yeah, and or digital form, whatever it is, and then having a tool to discuss those things on a level where you're not talking about what's nice and what's good looking, but you're more talking about which one of these look more professional, or which one of these look more safe, or how do you achieve those values, so you can have meaningful discussions about aesthetics and about expression. When your clients, they're maybe not used to that, so you're helping them develop a language. Something else that I think is important in our process is the later stages when you get to the refinement phase and then trying to solve every single detail. Then I think we really do go the extra mile. We do the extra iterations and then until everything is as good as we can get it. So I think we sometimes maybe keep going where other people would say that this is good enough. Then we're
Keep knocking down the doors.
just minor
Keep
things.
your hand on the truck.
Yeah, in a bit. No, but it's about. I think this is part of industrial design, which is just craftsmanship. Being you have to be able to produce good-looking curvature, and then things have to be right. It's like you work on Twitch, and then you adjust the radiuses and then the curvature and then the proportions and everything until it feels right, and that's just. It's the same basically, and it doesn't change, but on one level it does feel more pleasant. More pleasant to touch or more pleasant to look at.
So when's the book on how to use the use model coming out?
Oh yeah, it's not rocket science. That would be a leaflet of 2 pages. I don't think it's.
I think you're selling yourself.
I don't think it's more than that.
You delicately spoke about crafting the soul of an object, and then said you could put it in a pamphlet. I don't think so.
Don't undersell your skill set. So, how did you build the Permafrost way of doing things, this use model and your other tools?
Part of it, I think the use model is something that we've been working on and actually, I think, perfecting over the years. We always did, or invariably when we forgot or we didn't, like whenever we jumped into designing something without sort of having that platform of values and communication, then we ended up with conflicts later on. Things like people were seeing things they didn't expect. You cannot manage people's expectations in the same way when you don't, or when you present a concept for the communication and the sort of the story of a product with images and with words, then you manage people's expectations in a way that they will see that once the product takes shape, it will turn into that story. But if you didn't present the story at first, then they will be unsure about it. So it's
really makes sense. You're like taking them on that like journey, and you're almost like filling the idea with the soul.
And then you're on the same page from the beginning because they already said yes to this. And instead of discussing do you like it or you don't like it, then you're discussing it's more like which one of these are more professional and which one is more homely and which one is faster and which one is more safe, whatever it is. So you can have a discussion on a completely different level. And then it's
like that. It's putting benchmarks up against it to compare it against rather than which radius do you like more.
Yeah. Yes, I guess you can say that you have 3 main benefits from this. One is, of course, that you have the sort of client approval from the beginning. They know what they're getting into. And then secondly, you have a tool to guide you later, because whenever you're faced with a decision, you have this sort of, these are the images and these are the words, and this is the frame that we're in. And you can use that as a guidance to make the right decision along the way. And then there's also the actual inspiration from it, because in the process of digging into something that, what does it mean to be gentle when you're making a robot? How does that look? And then you're already thinking about how to achieve those things, and you're starting the design work, and you have a starting point for sketching instead of starting with a blank slate and a very, very difficult task. Then you're getting 3 things out of that, I think, that are all important.
A gentle robot.
Totally.
I think you asked for an example, and I think that's a specific example that I think I'm allowed to share, and that we have been working with someone who are trying to make a strawberry picking robot. And strawberry picking is an enormous industry. Mm-hmm. It's really big and it's time consuming. So if you can have a low robot do it, then it's obvious that you can save some money. But then there's also the fragility or the actual berries.
Video online about these really high-tech strawberry farms. Is Dyson one of the people who are doing it? The Dyson agricultural farm? Maybe,
I don't know if Dyson does it, but I do know that sort of it's considered more like the holy grail of robotic farming, because if you can manage to pick strawberries, then you can do anything. Because You have to be gentle and you have to be able to.
And you've got to pick it on the right day.
And so there's a camera and an AI. Someone needs to determine which one of these berries is what's a ripe berry and what's not a ripe berry, and what does it look on the back. So they have to determine the right time to pick one, and then they need to pick it without destroying it and be careful with it. And they are super sensitive, and any kind of pressure will destroy it. So I don't think anyone's managed to do it yet.
But you're getting close.
People are doing trials, I think, all over the world trying to do this, and whoever manages will have a huge business in front of them. But so we did some design work for this company, and it wasn't actually designing the robot, it was just helping them determine where to go with the design. So we did this use model, and then that was
Google. I think the one that I've seen is called Berry.
Yeah, the one we talked about was a Norwegian outfit. I don't know if they are world famous yet, but the one thing that the user would care about was your ability to be gentle, because they're worried about that. That's the one thing you need to do when you pick a strawberry. And then we talked about the sender part of this, and then you can imagine if you made a robot for farming, you could imagine some kind of traveling salesman with vacuum cleaners showing up on every farm and trying to sell their stuff. And that's not what they're doing. They're a service provider. If you buy their robot, they will service it, and you will not pay for the robot. You'll pay for the hours they work for you. So you're buying or you're renting labor, robotic labor, but you're not buying it. So they're a service provider and being that kind of partner instead of just the salesperson with the gadget. That was very important in trying to understand. So the word that came out, that was just being reliable. I mean, if someone is going to be a phone call away, half an hour away, when everything stops, or if it doesn't work, then they will probably know before you, and they will be in your field because the robot would tell you that it stopped working. So that's something that we had in that. So we wanted it to be gentle and reliable. And then for the entity itself, they have this system of modular robots that they already have robots on the fields today, but they don't pick strawberries. They serve them with UV lighting to reduce the use of pesticides, and they have other modules that you can add to help with the pest prevention or pest control. So they already have this little robot running up and down on the field. So building different modules, and you can have 1 or 2 or 3 strawberry picking arms, and trying to understand that this is a modular concept and not just a gadget again. So that came out as being, I don't know exactly the word we used, but something about being flexible or modular. And then you have something, so we want something that looks gentle, and it needs to look reliable, and it also needs to feel that it's modular or flexible to solve different tasks. And that's a completely different design task than trying to, can you draw a robot for me? Because then you would look at robots. You would go back to your Star Wars artwork and look at what the robots look like. So having a discussion before that and helps us
frame the context. Yeah,
and frame the design work later.
So a gentle Scandinavian flexible machine.
Yeah, reliable was it.
Reliable.
Gentle, reliable, and flexible.
A gentle, reliable, flexible machine. A gentle machine in its own right sounds like a challenge.
So you guys are primarily known for your Scandi, if not minimal, in-house design language. What were and are the challenges of doing industrial design when you have such a strong brand identity? Have you guys found you've gotten typecast, or has it led you only down positive pathways?
I do think it's positive for us, and I don't think it's not a choice we've made. You're brought up in Scandinavia with the values that we have, and we are put through an education built on those more or less the same values. And if you start with just the Scandinavian design or the culture of making objects in Scandinavia, it's very much built from this. You can imagine this harsh climate, scarcely populated country with an emphasis on being. If you're self-sufficient and a farmer and there's 300 miles to the next town, then you need to be self-sufficient with everything you do. And if you make an object, it needs to be functional and easily repairable, and you will not be wasteful with materials if you have them. It's born out of scarcity and frugality or prudence. Something maybe it's Protestant, but the point is that that's sort of the basis of being a designer in Scandinavia, is that you don't waste anything. You know that materials are valuable, and then whatever you do with them, try to make them as functional as possible and use as little material as possible and make it last long. And then there's the sort of the post-war Scandinavian design movement about equality and accessibility and making functional and beautiful stuff for everyone. Like design and art isn't supposed to be for the wealthy and privileged. It's supposed to be for everyone. Your everyday objects are supposed to be functional and beautiful, and why shouldn't they be? So all those ideals are, I think, ingrained in everyone in Scandinavia. And then for us, I think there's an element that maybe we feel is more closely related to Japanese or Korean designers in a way that we care about sort of the sensitivity. Some people call it poetic design, but it's more about intangible things that are not necessarily just about being minimalist and functional, but actually being more than that. And I think...
Like communal?
No, I think it's not about being communal. It's more about treating the objects with the kind of respect that being completely sensitive with the way you shape things and then design things, more than just if you cut a slab of wood and do nothing with it, then it's essentially minimalist, but it's not sensitively shaped. You haven't gotten under its skin.
You've wasted the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think
maybe intentional.
I think poetic design or poetry and sensitivity is sometimes about whatever is left unsaid.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're hinting at something, but you're not saying it. And adding sort of stories in a product, or hinting to things, or hinting to experiences, hinting to personality, adding something that makes you relate or connect with the product more than just using it. That kind of sensitivity, I think, is visible in Korean and Japanese design today. And I think we feel a kinship with that just as much as Scandinavian design.
So if I was to try and distill it qualitatively, it's like you have a sense of mystery about what's designed. There's something spoken but not detailed, an outline.
You can call it mystery, or you can call it personality, or you can call it emotional connection, but there is you want at some level to product that speak to you. And of course they don't, because they're objects. They don't speak to you, but we're humans, and that's one of our flaws or traits, that we interpret things with meaning. We think they think that they will love you back, so to speak. If you love your objects, you feel that they love you back. They don't, but you do feel a mutual connection.
I'm one of those people. I really struggle to get rid of things. I feel like they're going to be personally offended. They're going to think I'm wronged them.
I think that's a power. And I think it's valuable that you can feel that, because if you care and feel for your objects, you will take care of them. And that will then help the world in a sense that you will be less wasteful and more concerned with your surroundings.
Well,
like Marie Kondo.
I strive to be.
Would you say that outside of the Northern European market, there's a business rationale for this sort of aesthetic?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer the business rationale about it. But I do think that for us, it's easy to talk about something that we're saying that we want people to love and take care of things. Mm-hmm. I can talk about how this potentially helps save the world, and that's a good idea for us to be able to talk about. But the business potential of it, I have no idea about that. I think running a business successfully and selling things is just so difficult that I have no idea how to do that, really. But people approach us sometimes and they do comment on the apparent sensitivity or poetry of things that we have made, and that, I feel proud about that. And still, for us, some people will recognize it. So if that's what they want, then I'm happy to say that I can provide it. But there's no business strategy in it. I don't know if in the short run, at least, if you're able to monetize it, like that kind of quality will be apparent after years, and then when you realize that you still have it, but it's not maybe obvious in the first 2 weeks on your shelf or in your house. But yeah,
I feel like that really is true for clothing as well. Like when you buy it, you have no idea how often you'll get use out of it, and occasionally you'll just get that one piece that's like amazing. Do you think design can save the world, or are we part of the problem?
That is a question that I think people keep asking themselves. And I do know that we will always have objects. It's part of being a human, and our ability to shape and manipulate our surroundings is what makes us different from other animals. And you can imagine that, or you don't have to imagine that archaeologists, they will look at objects as a lens to understand culture. The tools and technology that any culture has is a way of describing that and understanding that culture. So we will have objects invariably. As long as there's humanity, there will be objects. So then we can at least help with those. How can we make those objects better for the world? And the one objects, you can talk about recycling plastics or making better things that are less harmful. But then for us, at least, the one factor that really matters is longevity. And if you calculate the carbon footprint of anything, then doubling its lifespan would halve the carbon footprint because it's divided by time. So time is a factor in that equation. And you can say that most of that is purely engineering. If you're designing for longevity, you need materials that last, and that I can say, we need materials that last, but in the end, it's the engineers who will pick the right materials for that, which steel is better and which aluminum is better.
That's decisive to use.
Yeah. And then you can design for repairability, and you have something called functional longevity, and that's a factor in and I guess a sales pitch also in many projects is knowing that this chair, you can transform it and it'll last longer. You can use it from ages 1 to 10 because of this and that. But then you can make a product and say that even if it has a short functional lifespan of a year, maybe, if it's for kids, for example, then it can still have a long life as a hand-me-down or in the second-hand market. As long as the quality is still there, someone will buy it and use it. It doesn't really matter who uses it as long as it replaces a new product. But then those qualities are also, in a way, engineered, being repairable, being functional, being quality of materials for a long time. Those things I can specify. It doesn't really take a designer to make it.
So what's left for design?
What's left is the connecting with the user in a way that they will actually care about these things. It doesn't matter if the quality is great and if the materials are long-lasting. If you're tired of it, doesn't matter if the quality is great and the materials are long-lasting. If you're tired of the product after 2 weeks and you just want to get rid of it, you want it replaced because it doesn't work or it doesn't look nice. Being able to reach into people and connect with people in a way that they will love and take care of their objects, that's the work of the designer, and that cannot be done, or it can be done if you're lucky, but that should be the job of the designer, really. I cannot instruct people to, please, you're not allowed to throw this away after 10 years or something. But if you do manage to connect with people on a certain level, then they will do that. You will love and take care of things, and that's a way of us helping the world a little bit, creating products that are meant to last and are pleasant to live with for a long, long time.
How does the color, material, and finish factor into your work? And what's the process for implementing, iterating, and innovating with it?
Yeah, color, materials, and finish, or CMF as everyone calls it. It is a factor in almost every project that we have. And I think it has been a growing focus in the last years about that. And some of it has to do with sustainability, I guess. People realize that some products or some materials are better than others. So it has to do with style and the preference and trends about what colors and materials are.
I enjoy that part of design.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with your point about sustainability. I know there was a lot of overmolding that the companies I worked for used to do. Now we don't. We really heavily rely on texture breakups and to try to mimic that similar contrast in materials.
Yeah, that's true. And I think for us, it's about staying ahead of them or being updated and staying knowledgeable and knowing about things. And this is the one value or bonus of being a consultant, is that you get into so many different businesses. So, you have experience from furniture when you work with textiles, or you have experience with electronics when you work with furniture, and more than just that one business. And then that could potentially help you pick up references and knowledge that is used in other fields and applying them across a business. But then, yeah, we do, when we get the chance, we do also experiment with things and then research things. And we've been like researching mycelium for products and growing them in molds with living cells. And we've been researching making terrazzo materials of building waste and then trying to replace. Yeah.
Do you have any example projects where the color material or finish was a significant impact on that user experience?
I do think that we had a project where choice of material was difficult in a way that we had a design that we liked and we had a shape that we liked, but it wasn't really clear how to reproduce it. It looked great in the rendering. I think I'm talking about, we did these sort of display modules for jewelry for a Norwegian brand called Tomwood. Mm-hmm. And they are in their own right doing great stuff, and they're famous and doing well all over the world. But they have a clear brand and a brand presence, and they have a home page and they have a following of people who love their brand and everything. But they're also making really tiny pieces of jewelry, like a ring or an earring. And then from 10 feet, that's not really can't really distinguish it from their competition. It's all the same. And you have to have it in your hand and on your finger before you really get to see the difference. For them, it was about finding a way to have a stronger brand presence on a little bit larger scale or on a larger distance.
Like just distinguishing their brand identity from 6 to 12 feet away.
Yeah, maybe 6 to 12, something like that.
Yeah, like how do you tell the brand from one diamond ring to the next? Like exactly. They're all made with the same material.
And then there was also the way the high-end sort of the fashionable jewelry, I guess a lot of it is sold in the lifestyle stores and hybrid stores where they have jewelry and fashion and accessories and shoes and purses and everything to have something that says, oh, they have Tomwood here, and without displaying the logo. That was important. So you wanted something that sort of had a unique and recognizable expression. Mm-hmm. Then there's also the idea that it's just display things. You're not supposed to overstage or you're second actor on the stage. There's the jewelry on top of that or in front of that needs to be still the center of attention. So you're trying to elevate something rather than outshine it. So we had this idea about these really subtle shapes with a mix of really soft curves and really sharp edges, crisp white display surfaces, and then we had to search for finding a way to make them. Like, how can we produce something that maintains those qualities and the subtlety of the nice shapes and curvature and then the soft lighting and shadows that we get to play with. And we found a moldable synthetic rock or synthetic mineral thing that's called jasmonite, which is synthetic plaster with
like a 2-part catalyst.
Yeah, they have a very large proportion of it's just mineral powder, so it's almost like you're casting marble, but it's castable. So you guys do get this sort of, and when you touch it, it's hard and cold and heavy and feels like rock, but it's shaped in a way that you wouldn't expect from anything else in a molded product. So it had the precisely controlled curves and the sharp edges that you want, and it even had some sort of tiny sparkles in it that makes it look even more. If you don't know what it is, it's mysterious because you don't immediately recognize the material. You see the shape and then you can understand the shape nature of it and you can touch it and feel it, but it's not obvious to you that what is this, because most people haven't seen it or haven't used that kind of material. And you're not supposed to touch it because it's under glass in a display case anyway. Yeah, they don't leave the gold and diamonds out for people to touch. But yeah, so that I think finding the right material was really key for that project, or else the qualities that we have managed to build into the shape of things, they would be completely lost again if we couldn't find the right material for that.
Totally.
And for anyone listening in, we have a link to that in the show notes. So probably a bit more off the beaten track, but sometimes you're obligated to take what we call chaff work, which is stuff that pays the bills. It might not be high value, and it often leads to more of the same work. For example, that we often use is you start a business, but you often take some point of sale design work and then find out that 3 years later, it's all you do. How do you guys navigate that sort of problem?
I'm being completely honest with you, everything, so I'm going to keep being honest. And I do think that we have to this date, like after 25 years, I don't think maybe once we have turned down a client, but we don't. Like if someone wants our help, we'll help them. And we can usually use the work or we need the money, whatever it is. So we do everything. And then sometimes, as you say, you feel that this work is slightly less relevant or less likely to end up in our portfolio or slightly less likely to generate more of the work we want. So to navigate that, I think the idea is that, and I think that was in our thinking from the beginning as well, as you said, work generates more work. So if you want a certain type of work, you need to do that. And if no one is paying you to do it, then you do it yourself. So then you go to exhibitions and you find a way to publish your work on and right now it's easy. If you make something or a self-motivated, self-started project, you can publish it on Behance or on Instagram. And if it's good, then it will be doing the rounds. And that is a way to generate the kind of work you want by showing people that you can do that kind of work that is the kind of work you want. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I think for us, there's a certain amount of work that we do that will not end up on our webpage or in our published stories. But it's not too much of it at this point, actually. I think we have the luxury of, and as I said, we don't turn people down, but we still get more of the work that is closer to what we feel comfortable with or feel confident about because we've been doing it for so long.
That makes total sense, yeah. Do you think industrial design is undervalued or overvalued?
Unfortunately, I think it's very often undervalued, and that has to do with how they teach business economics or how you calculate economics in a project. Because very often, my feeling is that any investment or any outlay for industrial design is sort of on the side of equation that equals cost. You're adding cost to whatever it is. And you need to keep the cost down. You would take the cost and quadruple it or something, and that would be the retail price for something. If you add cost, you're adding to the price of it, and then everything is more difficult to sell it. So if you're on the cost side of the equation, then there's a motivation for your client to keep your costs down. There is they will not gain from that, and they will be a sort of necessary evil for them. They need your services, but they would like to keep the costs down. As opposed to being on the other side of the equation, if you're marketing or if you're doing, then you want to spend as much as possible. Everyone knows that, every dollar spent on advertising is $2 in revenue, so they want to spend as much as possible. And then if they thought that way about the industrial design, then I would agree that it was overvalued, but most people don't. And most projects will have us on the cost side of the equation, and you're not going to getting money thrown at you.
Like, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to be on the cost side, but it also doesn't take into account like how it can have a perceived value add as well.
I think you've already spelled out the answer. We just need to tell people that for every dollar you spend on design, you get $2 more in revenue.
Yeah.
Great, better than marketing.
The equation is really simple, and you have these three words that have a similar meaning. You have the cost, and then you have the price, and then you have the value. And you need to want to, if you can keep the cost and price separate, then that's what you make. That's your return on investment. So you want those two things apart, but then for the client or for the user, they want the value and the price to be as far apart as possible, because if the value is high and it just costs this or the price is low, then I'll buy it. And people need to understand that we can not only reduce the cost, but actually add the value. Now, if you increase the value, then the price will follow, and then the argument is that you can add value by design, and add people's experience would be more valuable if it's a good product, and then they will be inclined. You don't even have to raise the price, but it will sell more easily. If the bigger the difference between the price and the value, then the more likely you are to buy it. But increasing the value is what we should be doing, instead of reducing the cost, because
it's definitely a good way of framing the conversation with the client. Have you ever had that conversation with the client?
Yeah, I'm not that confident. No, I don't think we have those kind of discussions as much. I think it's something that would be unsaid. But it's also, I think, when we get the right projects and we're approached by the right clients, then they do know that we have value to offer them. And it goes without saying. Then there's also, and this is something that you can, at least in parts of design, like in the typical sort of the furniture and the wardrobe world of design, then not only are you adding value by using a designer, but you can use the designer as a marketing tool. And that's the few, if a designer manages to stumble into that sort of position where they're a marketing tool, where you can advertise it by saying, oh, this was made by Philip Stark or whatever, then that means that then any dollar spent is $2 in return. But most designers will never end up there, and it takes a very special sort of focus in your career to try to end up in that space.
I reckon design by Permafrost could be a tagline.
It could be a tagline, I don't know. But it does take an enormous amount of work to going to the parties and talking to the right people and going to the right bar in Milan every day.
Also, it takes a lot of luck and being in the right place at the right time, taking the right opportunities.
If you're an introvert, like 95% of designers, then it's not for you.
Okay. I don't know. I don't believe in luck, but probably a good segue into our next question. What would you say is a weakness of Norwegian design culture, and what are its strengths?
One thing that is a factor or feature in Norwegian design culture, whether it's a strength or not, is that it's a small country. The pool of designers is small. We probably know everyone or most of everyone, and the pool of companies to work with is also small, and you can imagine that there would be problems with inbreeding and then lack of new thoughts and new ideas. But then there's also the ability to maintain a sort of a style or maintain a value proposition over time, because it's done in a closely knit country or in a closely knit community with people sharing values and having the same education and working with the same handful of companies, and that they will produce consistency over time. So there's consistency, but also potentially inbreeding. So that's a plus and a minus with it.
Potential stagnation is what you might worry about?
Yeah, I can think that. And then for us right now, it feels like Scandinavian design and Norwegian design is valuable or considered good around the world, and that's luckily for us. That's been true for the last 20 years. If before that, maybe in the 80s or 90s, everyone was raving about Italian design. And if you were an Italian designer, then that would be, happy for you. And then it would be difficult to be a Norwegian designer on an international stage, maybe. So I can imagine that those things go in waves. And, there was this Scandinavian mid-century wave, and that lasted into the 60s and 70s and maybe 80s. And then it came back late 90s, and then from up until now, and then we're living off of that. And if it ends, then
What I'm really hearing is it's like Australia's turn next.
Fingers crossed.
As I understand it, Permafrost has stayed small. Around your core team, is there a reason why you've chosen to stay at this size? Was there a certain rationale, or just really enjoy the close-knit team?
We have this discussion from time to time, and I think the feeling is that, if you grow beyond a certain size, then you're suddenly design managers instead of designers. And we don't want to do that. At this point, still, we want to do the design. We want to be doing the work and not just overseeing the work. And so if you get to beyond a certain size, then you're going to lose that.
Yeah, you just end up being a people manager.
Yeah, so that's on the personal motivation level. You want to keep doing the interesting work. And then for the client, there's a value in knowing that when they come to us, they know that they will get the experienced senior resource overseeing and doing the work. And they know who will show up in the meetings. So it's not, if you worked with a huge consultancy and you can potentially see that there's a new group of people on each presentation. There's a new designer or someone you didn't know, and then there's uncertainty in that, and maybe they don't feel that they're valued enough. So I think we have had clients that have come to us because they have been dissatisfied with working with huge consultancies and feeling that they weren't getting to know the people they worked with in the same way. And we call it has been labeled work. I know that others or other consultancies have a similar organization. Maybe I've seen it been labeled as an upside down pyramid, and that's just a way of saying that it's smarter than it sounds. But We feel that the work is supposed to be done by the most experienced and senior designers. And if you hire someone, they will help you with the less important tasks. So maybe there will be 2 senior designers for every junior designer, or at least something like that. But for us, I think there's value for the client in it, and it's personal motivation for us to keep doing the interesting work.
And maybe a bit off topic, but what would you say so far in your design journey has been your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
I think we ended up doing everything that we've been warning our clients about in one particular project. This stems from some early exhibition work that we did. We made some rugs that ended up being popular, and we found a way to manufacture them and sell them without too much investment.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, we decided that we wanted to expand on that. We wanted to make another collection of rugs, and we spent a lot of time and then invested a lot of resources into it, and we were not going to release it until we were completely happy. So we made 1 million prototypes and worked with this pattern and everything for a long time. And then we ended up invested in stock and bought them, and I thought that now, this is going to be a really good expansion on our collection of rugs. But then we forgot everything we tell our clients. And if we work with startups or entrepreneurs or people that have an idea for a new product, we always keep telling them that you cannot just design a nice product and then think that's enough. Nothing will sell itself. You need to have a plan for marketing and distribution and sales. And if you don't, then it doesn't matter how nice it is. Mm-hmm. So we did all those things wrong, and we thought that, but these things are so nice that they will sell themselves and no one needs to market them, or we don't. So we didn't have any plan for distribution. We didn't have any plan for marketing. We didn't have any way of reaching out and letting the public know about this collection. So nobody saw them and nobody knew about it and nobody wanted it and nobody bought it in the end. And we realized that we wasted a lot of time and money on something that we did just the way we're warning people about.
You flew too close to the sun.
They are really nice rugs though. Like, I'm looking at them now and they are they do have that personality about them. Yeah.
We'll have a link to them in the show notes.
We do have some that are almost like classics now because they've been around for the time, and then they get their own sort of following. People know about them and want them at some point. But to introduce something completely new without that story and without that background, it takes resources to build public knowledge about the product. You cannot just make it and hope people will notice, because they won't. You need to be exhibiting in shows. You need to find a way to get into magazines and get into editorials and all that stuff. And we didn't do any of it, and it failed completely. Yeah.
I feel like it's not even just about doing the work. It's about, if you don't do it, your competition will.
Yeah.
So you're on the back foot already.
Absolutely. And I think early, when we looked at the world and what we wanted to do and what kind of strategy we had for our business, we wanted to be in a competitive space. We wanted to make consumer products that were fighting for people's attention and people's money on the shelf in a store, rather than doing business-to-business work or one-off projects or whatever you can deliver without being exposed to competition in that way. And I do think that's the ultimate test of design, is whether or not people will buy it and use it and approve it.
$1 million question, isn't it? If we all knew what was commercial and what would sell, we would all be...
Yeah, but I know if you spend $1 million on marketing, you can get people to try anything, but they will not love it unless it's good. So that will be like a flash in the pan. The true test is, do people use it and buy it and love it, and will they choose it over the competition? It's really harsh.
Having a good product is only the baseline level.
Yeah, it's true. But for us, we want to expose our work in that space. We want to be taking that risk and taking that chance.
You like to live dangerously.
Yeah, it sounds... No, but you will be exposed. Good isn't good enough. You need to be exceptional if you want to launch something into the world, it needs to be exceptional or iconic. It cannot be just good.
Totally.
That is not...
Yeah.
There are a lot of other consultancies out there that never really reach their potential. What do you think is holding them back?
To a consultancy or a studio of young people, I would just say, hold on to the truck. You have to stay in there until you get the work you want, or you need the stamina and the resilience and the belief in yourself until you're experienced enough to get it. And that takes time and it takes patience. You're not experienced from day one. That's not going to happen. So I think hold on to the truck is my piece of advice.
Perfect.
I feel like you need to enter one of these competitions. Do you feel like you have potential to win the truck?
I would win it, no problem.
I reckon we need to all meet at a design fair or something, and we need some iconic object in the middle.
Let's do it. On 2025.
Let's do something. I would love to be in Mr. Bean's show and just nail the competition with my patience.
Okay, we'll do it. We'll have a hold on to the truck competition, but it's a toy truck that's really small.
Oh yeah.
And we'll make it like someone will have to remote control it around. It'll move every hour, just a little bit.
See all these designers crawling after the truck.
Trying to hold on to this toy truck.
So far in your career, what's your favorite product that you've worked on that's under $100?
I think one particular favorite is the little PAL desk lamp we made for a Japanese company called Miniso, which is extremely affordable. It's like less than $3, and it has almost no features, and it has a super simple shape, but it has a ton of personality. And just with the smallest imaginable features, then you get all that expression and all that personal connection that I'm talking about. And it's a completely affordable product that anyone can buy and pick up, and you buy it once and then it will stay on your desk for years and years. And you do feel that emotional and personal connection with that little thing just from the 3 features that it has.
Yeah, but almost taking things away, you've added to it.
That's an example, I think, of how you say much more by the things that's left unsaid. Like you take away everything else, and then your mind will fill it with meaning and personality.
Yeah, totally. I'm looking at it now. It is actually so cute. It's almost like the shape of a Google Nest, and then it has the most beautiful little feet.
It reminds me of a cute little duck.
Yeah. You're totally right. It really does have so much personality.
Yeah, but that's nice because you can fill it with your own sort of interpretation and meaning, because there's a lot of blank slates still left. If you painted the face on it or gave it ears or eyes.
I feel like it's got like a huge Mr. Potato Head like potential.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's...
I hope that's not an insult.
No, but I think that, I'm happy that you say that, and I think that I'm gonna blow my own trumpet to claim that this is particularly poetic or something, but it does explain the idea of leaving things unsaid. Like you say a little bit, but then you can imagine the rest, and the thing that happens in your head are much, much more valuable to you than trying to say everything out loud and in detail.
Like the value of the iPhone, right? Like you pull it out of the packaging and it like reflects yourself because it's so minimal. And then you're the person bestowing the value into the product by installing it with what you want, right? Similar with the light, you're bestowing your own feelings and the personality onto it.
Absolutely.
Even though you're not necessarily adding features, you're like filling it with lightfulness.
Yeah, you're filling it with just your imagination, because the iPhone, as you said, it's filled with your personality in your life and your apps and your memories and your contacts and your photos. So it is you. It's an extension of you. But this lamp isn't, of course. But it is what you want it to be. Like if you,
Sorry, that was probably a really disjointed comparison, but
I would love to be compared with iPhones. Yeah, please go ahead.
It made sense to me. Hopefully, it makes sense to someone else.
Thank you, Tore, for joining us on the show today. For our listeners, don't forget to check the show notes for links to anything we've mentioned, where to follow the show, see Tore and the rest of the work from Permafrost, plus discounts from our sponsor, PCBWay. Until next time, this has been Redacted.
The number you have dialed has not been recognized. Please check and try again.